Thanks for joining me, everybody. I am here with my friend Lana Rafaela. Lana, let's talk, before we dive into agencies, let's talk about scuba diving. Because as we were talking before, you are a big fan, and you were just telling me about, and I'd love to get into this, what's the coolest wreck or sort of dive you've done lately? Let's talk about it.
So the coolest one definitely has been this World War II bomber plane that crashed near Croatia. So basically in our sea, in the Mediterranean Sea. And it's just amazing. Like that moment when you dive into the blue and then the wreck starts showing up and you start to see this. Well, obviously there's history in it and you become a part of that moment. I mean, it is tragic in a sense as well, but it's also history at work. So if you always wanted to be an archaeologist or grew up watching Indiana Jones like me, then that's like a massive, massive thing for you. So that's been amazing.
What do you think draws you to diving? Because diving to me is one of these hobbies like skydiving or going really dangerous thing. It's like any wrong move and you're kind of dead. I hate to say it, any more bluntly, but it's a dangerous sport. What draws you to it though?
Honestly, for me, it's like meditation. I could never get meditation to work. And then diving, that works for some reason. Because there's no emails. Like when you're 40 meters below, there's no emails, there's no other priorities. You're just in that moment. And that helps a lot. And it's not that dangerous. Like they train you on what to do and what not to do. So don't worry. You should try it. You should try it.
I do want to. It's on my list for sure. I have a short list of things I haven't yet done that are a little scary to me, and that I definitely want to, and that's definitely on there. So maybe next summer I'll have gotten my first scuba going and be able to talk about it more. Well, Lana, let's talk about what we do both have in common for sure, which is running agencies. Tell me a bit about Cherry Red Content, your company, and what you all specialize in.
Yeah, so Cherry Red, I've been running it for about 4 years now. And we started off specializing in content marketing. Back in the day, it was mainly blogs, copywriting, that kind of thing. But where we decided to really focus was not focusing on the quantity, but the quality. So we are actually taking a more of a boutique studio approach where we get in depth into client accounts. So we're able to anticipate the challenges that they might have, which also helps with, proactively upselling them, but also expanding our horizons. So these days we cover everything that's even, moderately related to content, from videos to content itself, like the written part, to social media, to outreach, co-marketing initiatives. We try to be the kind of agency that every founder would like to have by them. Very operational, very fast, and very focused on the things that are going to help them.
Cool. And is that your typical clients, like a startup founder, so relatively early stage companies?
Yeah, definitely. And mainly bootstrapped, because I can relate to that as a founder myself. So definitely bootstrapped companies that are already profitable, that are looking to expand beyond their initial client list, define their ideal personas. So yeah, you could say early stage.
Yeah. And those were always my favorite clients to work with too, personally. Like I talk about this a lot on the show. When I started Draft.dev, though, my first clients were early stage startups because I just get founders, it's like they're year one as well. Like we have a lot in common. It's just more fun. But they can be hard to work with, right? Like they could be picky. Like what's your take on the trade-offs there?
I think it's good for them to be picky because they have opinions and they are not looking for low commitment stuff. So I typically like to say there are two types of clients I've seen. It's the low commitment ones where it's just like, I'll hire you for this service and do it with my minimal input. And this is okay, but this also falls into the corporate trap where it's like everything's so clear of opinions, of differentiation, it becomes interchangeable with all the competitors, right? You know what I mean? You know what I mean?
Totally.
Yeah. And then with founders, they're very hands-on. And that's great because you can probe them for insights. You can get a sense of why they're doing what they're doing. They're still very close to the problem they initially set out to solve. And that just doesn't happen with enterprises. Like everyone's in their functions And founders, they're still in the trenches. They're still fighting. And I think it's a wonderful fight that I want to help with.
Yeah, I think that's a really good insight. And this is something that I've mentioned a lot as well when founders ask about what should I do for content marketing in the early days when we don't have the budget versus all, all the big competitors do to cover, 10,000 keywords and do all the SEO stuff they need to do. And I'm like, look, but here's what you have that they don't have, which is a strong point of view that you can actually say. Like the CEO of Amazon or AWS or something that you compete with, he can't say the things you can say about where the future of Kubernetes is going and what he thinks about AI. You can say whatever you want. Like there's no PR department to stop you. And in a way, it's like, yes, that's dangerous, but it's also really good because you can actually say things that can resonate and can make strong, beliefs and opinions. So it sounds like you've seen the same thing, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And that's very powerful because in the beginning, if you can call things out for what they are, show people where the problem actually lies, which big companies can do, like you said, there's PR department stopping them, then you've got actually a chance of getting through to people in a way that they understand. So it doesn't have to be wrapped in cellophane and, made pretty. You can just say, this thing sucks and I'm here to fix it. And that's major.
Yeah, totally. Okay, so you've got cherry red content. I know you've also been doing a lot of work in product marketing. Let's talk about that for a quick detour, and then we'll get back into the agency world. So product marketing is interesting. I almost never heard the term product marketing 10 years ago, and now it is everywhere in SaaS especially. Give us your take on what is product marketing as a whole, and then why is it one of these disciplines that kind of has a bit of a like fuzzy lines around it, like where no one can really quite tell what it is, but it's really important?
Yeah. So where product marketing, the way I see it, came from is back in the day, especially in SaaS companies, you used to have very siloed departments. So product was off on one side developing its thing, and then marketing was trying to understand what it is and what they can say and can't say. And that obviously caused a lot of confusion. Feedback was stuck everywhere. And so product marketing came in, and this is also what I see daily, is it sits between marketing, it sits between product, and it tries to create this bridge so that information can flow freely, so that, engineers are getting insights from us on what we're seeing when talking to customers. And vice versa. We know what's coming up. We know what's being developed and why. So it is still a bit of a murky discipline, I would say. And for every company, it's different. In some companies, bigger ones, a product marketer could mainly focus on promoting new features and, sending out email campaigns, increasing product stickiness. For others, it sits somewhere between sales and creating collateral there to help and launching campaigns to motivate customers, improving retention. So it's very much a role that allows every company to fill this need and specific different needs, and then put it in one box of a person who will solve that.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. I think that's a good way to put it, is that product marketing kind of evolved out of this need to break down the silo between product and marketing, who talks about it. And it's such a challenge because, often like marketing excels almost when it has a very static product that doesn't change, but that's just never the case in SaaS because you're constantly having to keep up with all the competitors and drive new products and features and all this. And so there just ends up being these big gaps of marketing understood it as this category, and then it's evolved into this category. Things get really messy. Yeah. Yeah. So how much of product marketing ends up being content? Because it seems like a lot of things you mentioned there are pretty content heavy: newsletters, product announcements, talking about features, like sharing the stuff. Like, is it 100% content? Are there other elements to it? Like, how are those related?
Yeah. So content, we traditionally think of content as blog posts, social media posts, but in reality, everything's content. Like every single sales email that goes out there, that's content. So I would say in a day-to-day sort of thing, it's 60% content, and the rest 40 is strategy. So it's getting insights, it's translating features into benefits that people will understand. It's like true marketing, where it's really positioning and how you place it. But content plays a crucial role. Everything is content.
I know you were at, kind of going back to Cherry Red. I know you were at Contentfly before, and I'm actually familiar with them. This is kind of a funny aside to a story, so I'll just quickly say this. They changed their name to, I think, Draft.co. Is that right? Yeah. So they changed their name to Draft like a year after I launched Draft.dev, which, I had the name first, by the way, but no, I'm just kidding. It's kind of a common word, so I was sort of begging for someone else to call it. Anyway, you worked at Contentfly, and then you spun out and started your own agency. Tell me more about that. Why go on your own? And what was that? What kind of did Contentfly teach you about content that sort of made you think?
Well, the first thing is I came into Contentfly as freelance writer and freelance content strategist. So that was one of the reasons why I could manage the entire marketplace, talking to customers, the writers, and so on. And the main reason why I decided to go out on my own was the fact that Contentfly has taught me so much about standard operating procedures, about project management, about getting projects from A to B, all through those, quality reviews and that very much subjective feedback. So it's given me this perspective, because when you see something 100 times a day, like an exchange between writers and clients, and you get a sense of what's going on and what are the problems, what are the root causes that are making things not work. And I think Draft and Contentfly, it was doing a great job. But obviously it's very much a different thing when a client is talking to only one person, for example, me as an agency founder, versus when they're submitting their request into a marketplace and trying to manage the process on their own, like hitting the snags. It's just different concepts. For some people, it works.
My impression has always been that Contentfly was a very high volume, low cost sort of option, right? It just kind of almost in the same vein as like Upwork or Fiverr in a way, where you're paying for a big batch of tens of thousands of words and you're getting freelancers to come into it, whereas an agency tends to be a little more like working with you, like you said, through the process. Is that your perception of the difference as well?
Well, you can definitely focus more on a specific client's needs when you've got fewer clients rather than a whole marketplace full of them. I think Contentfly was actually good. It was not like a standard platform like Upwork and Fiverr where there's no oversight. There was a lot of manual oversight. There was a lot of editing involved and making sure that the end products went out looking good and meeting the client specifications. But it's different. As an agency founder, I review most of the deliverables that come through for clients' bigger projects. So I have coordinators who make sure that all the information is in place, that everything's meeting the requirements. And that's like I said, much easier to do when you've got 15 clients than 1,500.
Yeah, totally. So let's talk more about those clients at Cherry Red. Like, who's a typical client, and then how have they mostly found you, or you found them? Like, where do you get most clients today?
Most clients today, we get them through LinkedIn. We get them through referrals. I get them through offering useful advice. I remember when I first started Cherry Red, some of my first clients, they came through the Indie Hackers forum. So I was having these threads helping them create their first landing pages for their MVPs. And so that aspect of helping them resolve challenges for free, that's kind of kept going, that educational part. And so I try to do it on LinkedIn these days. But yeah, referrals, definitely always a hit. And I think that's the case for most agencies.
Most agencies, yeah. I mean, I asked that question to everybody, and I can't think of the last agency owner who didn't mention referrals as one of their top sources. So I'm sure it's almost always up there. And for a lot of people, it's their only sort of repeatable source of leads. Has anything not worked for you? I always like to ask this too, is kind of the counterpoint is like, we're always running experiments and trying things out. Like, anything you found that's just like not worth doing for you guys at Cherry Red?
So ads, usually ads on Google Ads. We've tried doing some, but there's obviously the very, very high CPC, and it's good targeting. Google Ads has decent targeting, but somehow for us, it's always been better to go directly into these communities like forums on Reddit or like the indie hackers that I mentioned, just building those relationships one-on-one. For some reason, it's always responded better with people. When you see an ad, it's almost anonymous, and I could create the world's best landing page and slap my face right there and offer them coffee or whatever. But it's just different to when they read a message or when they have this sort of personal connection.
Totally. Yeah. I think the trust sort of needed to close a sale from an ad is much higher. You need to build much more trust. And so, yeah, you're right. Running an ad to an agency and then charging the client somewhere, I don't know what your prices are like, but anywhere in the neighborhood of $1,000 to $5,000, $10,000 a month is like it's a big barrier, right? Like it's an ad that leads me to a landing page where I buy something for $20. Well, that's fine. That makes sense. But $1,000, $10,000, like that's kind of a lot, So I think you're right. Like ads in general, unless they're something like retargeting ads where you're targeting someone who's already read your content on your site or something like that, or you're doing ads towards a lead magnet that then you're going to follow up and drip campaign people for months. Like those things might make more sense for an agency, but I agree. Very few agencies really hit the paid ads and make those work unless you're very low cost or you've got, something else working to your advantage. But yeah, interesting. When it comes to doing the sale, walk me through the typical process. I always like to hear what other people do here. Is it kind of a typical discovery call and then you try to scope out the project, or do you do it all in one call? What's it typically look like for you?
It depends. So some clients, they come to you with very specific things they want done. And that's where the discovery call also includes scoping out the project. But usually what I'll do is, the first call is pure consultancy. So I want to understand their broader marketing and business needs, because sometimes this down the line leads to them discovering that they actually need reactivation sequences. For example, if it's a SaaS that's been running for 5 years, and their first users came through AppSumo, and they've changed their product massively since then that's where these kinds of consultations come in place and help them discover additional needs. But I'm a big fan of like consultative sales. I know that maybe some 5 to 10% of the conversations I lead or my team leads, it usually ends up in us saying, I don't think we're the right fit for you at the moment. Here's what you should do. And then when you're done with that, when you've got the results from that, come to us and let's talk again. And this can usually happen for SaaS that's pre-product marketing fit. So we try to help, but we're not afraid of saying no to a deal.
What do you think those early stage founders, especially those in pre-product market fit, need to understand about their marketing that they typically don't understand when you start talking to them?
Well, the first thing is they need to stop being afraid of it. Because usually I see technical people, they're building products and they're terrified. And I know you probably got a lot of experience with this, but everyone's just very afraid. So I would say they first have to understand where it is specifically that their audience is. And since they're founders, since they don't have as much development work yet, because all those feature requests aren't coming in, because there's not a lot of users, they should go out there and focus on validating their product and talking to people one-on-one. And this is where sales, more so even than marketing, comes in. So if they can figure out one channel that works well for them, maybe that's Reddit, maybe they like using Reddit and they like talking to people on there, then try to get connections through there. So just try to find 1 or 2 channels that work for you, start pushing your ideas and start talking about problems first, and then see who comes in, start talking to those people, and then just keep working on that and keep working the pipeline, as the people in sales say, because that's going to lead to insights. At pre-PMF, that's what matters most.
Yeah, totally. I 100% agree. And I had a big learning early on in my entrepreneurial career. Right after I started Draft.dev, I read the book. A friend recommended the book, The Mom Test. Have you read that by chance?
Yes,
Yeah.
yes.
Okay. So it very much in line with what you're saying, which shifted my thinking because I was a software engineer previously too. So I had I built all these little side projects that never went anywhere. And fundamentally what they were all missing was like any degree of product market fit because I never talked to anybody. I just built whatever I thought was cool. And so I was one of those people. And then with the mom test, I'll kind of briefly summarize what I took away from it, which is instead of asking people, hey, do you think this would be cool? Would you pay for this? Whatever. Ask them, do you already spend money to solve this problem? And if so, how much? And does my, then your sort of next obvious step is my tool can fit in that budget you already spend and it's a better solution, then they're going to say yes. But if they currently have a problem, but they don't spend money on it, it's not that big a problem to them. And I think this is where a lot of builders, we build things that are cool and that maybe people say they would pay for, but if they're not actively spending money to fix that problem today, they probably won't do it in the future because that's the best indicator of future outcomes is, past results. So anyway, I think that's a really good point in general for anyone at any stage of starting a business is just go talk to more customers and ask them, what are they really paying for today and how can you get into that budget category?
Exactly. Especially since I remember reading an article from, I don't know if it was Andreessen Horowitz but it was a big investing firm. And so they were describing different types of startup problems that they tend to solve. So some of them are burning. People are willing to spend money on them right away. And some are just not, it's not the right timing. People still don't understand that it's a problem that can be solved. And so I think you have to be cognizant if you're an indie builder, if you don't have investment capital yet, you also don't have the runway to start generating demand. You have to focus on capturing it. So start with that. And then when you make money on that exit, then go generate demand for something else.
That's right. Yeah. I mean, like people talk about a lot in startups, creating a category. And for at least a few years there, it was a very hot idea was to create, when you launch your SaaS, create a whole new category instead of fitting into an existing one. And I think personally, I think that's the hardest way to do it because people aren't already searching for it. You're not, lined up against competitors where people compare you and fit you into a budget category. Like there's just a lot of challenges there that I know it's cool to be the first to create that category thing, but like super hard to pull off. And honestly, again, a lot of products just don't need to be a whole new category. They certainly fit into an existing one. And so anyway, I'm with you there. There's especially when you're indie and you're bootstrapping, you're not raising a bunch of money, like you really need to think about what's realistic given your budget. So good insights for founders who are thinking about marketing early on. I agree with you. They often ignore it or don't spend enough time talking to customers, and that's kind of the fundamental problem. And then because of that, they're not very confident in who they're selling to, and they never really talk about what they're selling to who because they don't know who to talk to. And so there are lots of problems that fall after that. How do you get a founder that is in that stage and stuck, but they're like, I know we need to market, but I just, can't do it. How do you get them over that hump? Do you work with them much on that? Or do you kind of say, hey, that's your problem, go fix that, and then come back to me when you're ready to talk to customers?
No, that's, if they're aware that they need marketing, then it's a thing that I will help them with. So that's where sometimes I'll say that I'm more like a psychologist in a way than
totally.
a marketer, but they're complementary. How to get them over that hump. It depends on what the blockade is. So a lot of founders actually subconsciously think their products are not good enough and they're never going to be good enough. And that's also what's stopping them from getting out and talking to people. So some of the things we try to do is baby steps. So I give them a few options. I explain what could help them depending on their category, how long that would take. And normally we prioritize short-term wins. So like if you do social media content, usually very instantly you can see the feedback, especially if you put some paid spend on it. And then for blog posts and that kind of thing, everyone loves that. So everyone for some reason defaults to it because they've been conditioned to think SEO equals win-win-win, like lottery thingies going around and everything. It's a slot machine. It's not. But I usually try to coach them through it and then see what sort of channel they are most comfortable with. And that's all there it is to that, because it's very individual.
Yeah. I like that advice too. And I say the same thing to founders, which is, it's easy to read some article about how so-and-so had all the success doing this marketing thing and think, oh, well, I'll just do that. But if you don't like to do it, so for example, if you read about, oh, some guy got really big on YouTube and he's got 50 million followers and now he launched a business off it, I should just get big on YouTube. Like, but if you hate creating videos or hate watching yourself on video, and you're not going to do that. It's not a good idea. It's not that's not your zone of genius. You're going to get drained by it. Like it's going to be a slog. If you like writing, then great. Writing should be your channel. If you like social media, great. That should be your channel. If you love short form video, then go use that as your channel. There's nothing wrong with any of those. They can all work, right? And but it's like trying to force yourself to be something you're not is super hard and draining. And you kind of just want to do what you're good at early days. And then eventually you can hire people to fill all the gaps, right? But you can't do that in the early days. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And not to mention that usually the case studies we see about marketing working is, what did Apple do to make it big? Right. What did Nike do? And it's like they had so much brand awareness already. Yeah, Come on, one word in the copy.
Right. Yeah. It does not apply. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, totally. And yeah, again, like the things like, going viral or something, it's like, yeah, it's possible. But like, if that's your only hope of making this thing take off, it's probably not a good, sustainable business model. Anyway. All right. Let's talk about delivering service. Because this is where, with I gather that your business is pretty high touch. You're trying to learn these founders' businesses and what is holding them back, and you're working with them very kind of one-on-one almost. Where do you get other people involved from the team? How much of it do they do versus you do yourself? It sounds like you're pretty involved in getting the founders kind of coached through, or like where's the line there, or how do you get other people involved in the team?
Yeah, so my team is pretty involved. I have to say these days I'm more like doing 10% of the work, and most of that is strategic. And so my team usually takes it from A to B. I only come in sometimes where I need to speak to a specific founder about something, or it's a personal connection, something like that. But for our process, it's definitely very high touch. So I have sort of account managers that also coordinate these projects for the clients, and work with independent contractors for things like video editing and content writing, social media experts. So they're the core of the team, really, and I wouldn't be able to do it without them.
Yeah. Okay, great. So you've got some, core team that's kind of helping with the account management and a lot of the content creation, I'm assuming, and some of the other things, and you're kind of helping at the strategy level and with bringing on new clients. I'll ask the $1 million question for 2025, which is, how is AI affecting your service delivery side of things? It's something we're actively talking about in both of our companies. We're always trying to look at tools like, what are you guys using it for or not using it for? Like, where is it playing for you?
Yeah, so for us, it's playing a lot like in the brainstorming phase for the writers, for the content briefs, that sort of thing. It's gotten massively popular. Usually I get asked whether AI has impacted our bottom line, which fortunately it hasn't. But I do think it has changed things, especially when it comes to services like SEO blog writing, because SEO is just, it's sort of declining because of ChatGPT and all this conversational software. But in terms where other places where we use them, like for example, we use Riverside. So just like you, we use Riverside, and it's got this fantastic AI editor. So it's allowed us to save a lot of time that we can then reallocate to focus on the strategy. So I'm very AI positive.
Yeah, I'm with you. And I think most of the agency owners I've talked to have been in the same boat, where it's, from the outside, you'd assume that, oh, AI must just be replacing you. It's like, well, right now, at least, all the AI tools that are out there work great in tandem with a knowledgeable human, but none of them are independently that smart. They all need to be checked and like kind of guided and things. And so fundamentally, what it allows our teams to do is like smaller teams to do the same or more output of work, essentially. And at the end of the day, the client is getting the results they want, so they're still paying. And so there's not really this massive economic shift there, I don't I don't see it yet. And again, like maybe it'll be different in 5 years. And I don't want to presume I know the future, but I do think fundamentally, especially with agencies, people are paying for our expertise in these tools as well as our expertise in this subject matter and how to produce content. And so I honestly don't look at it as that as much of a threat as a lot of people do, but it sounds like we have similar views there, and we're both using it where it makes sense and, not trying to replace ourselves completely.
Yeah, no, absolutely not. I do think where AI shines is really these repeatable processes, these sort of, it's usual patterns of thinking. And that's where I see us going more creative. So, because if we can outsource some of the things to AI, some of the, form fill outs and brief building, then we can actually focus on the ideas that'll get a lot more attention. And I think we've been very formulaic, especially in B2B. I keep saying that business to business isn't boring to boring. But, I hope with AI taking care of the boring stuff, we can actually go out there and create amazing ideas, because that's what gets attention today. There are phenomenal articles being written about marketing being more a form of entertainment today than it has ever before. And that's a concept that we're also exploring. Like, how can we build more engaging content that feels almost like watching Netflix rather than reading a brochure? So hopefully, AI can get rid of the boring stuff for us.
Yeah, I agree. I think in general, the trend in marketing is going to be towards more entertaining and personality driven content, whether it's, and then again, the medium doesn't matter. It could be written, it could be video, it could be audio, whatever. But all these things, because you can mass produce the very high level, let's say what is sales enablement? If this is your big picture SEO piece, that's that kind of content AI can write, anybody can write. It's just very bland, cut and dried stuff. But what it can't do as well is the sort of the hot take on how sales enablement is really shifting in 2025, how we're seeing it in our customer base, how I'm seeing it as a sales professional, so many things there that are more personality driven and interesting that are still valuable and still answer that question of what is sales enablement, but in a way that is much more personable. And I think that's, again, where it's kind of headed, and we see the same thing. So it sounds like we're in that same page there. What do you struggle with when it comes to service delivery? Being a pretty high touch and you're trying to write these opinionated, you're kind of taking, strong opinions from founders. What part about this is hardest for you?
I would say harnessing those opinions and trying to, turn them into a part of the strategy. So where we land right now, usually with founders, we just allow them to drop their notes at us. And then we figure them out like puzzle pieces into specific strategy aspects that we need to cover. And plus, founders are always busy. So it's trying to make it as low touch, as effortless as possible. So I would say that is a significant consideration. And then the second thing is, staying on top of trends. Obviously, you have to have a process for understanding what's going to be trending and what is hot in the industry right now. So that sort of thing really helps stand out today. Yeah,
it's a very good point. I find the same challenge, just getting those founders to sit down and think about and externally, vocalize their opinions. Whether you do it through an interview and on a call, or you're trying to ask for notes or whatever, that part's hard. And then getting feedback from them as well. You write the first draft, you kind of want their thumbprint on it. You want them to read it and see what it sounds like and make sure it all lines up. And sometimes it's hard to get them to sit down and review something for an hour, Yeah. What are you learning as far as hiring and team members that work for you? This is kind of a shift change, but also, relates to service delivery. And I'm always curious because we are in such people heavy businesses, and we fundamentally need really good people. What do you find is the key for hiring the right people for you all?
So for me, the hiring has been the biggest challenge, especially in the first few years, because I usually used to look for specific technical skills. I mean, hard skills in the sense of if we needed a content strategist, then that's exclusively what to focus on. So we want people who were working with HubSpot. We want them on the team. And then you start to figure out that we have a different sort of culture and a different sort of relationship with these founders, where I would have my team members, struggling with talking to these founders, not understanding why they're not getting replies. And it turned out that it was because the team members themselves, they didn't have the entrepreneurial experience that these founders are having right now. So for me, the biggest change has been trying to hire people who have also ran significant businesses of their own, because they understand what it's like. They know that the struggle to prioritize 10,000 things every day it's a big challenge. And obviously, as a contractor, you will be last on the list. But if you can speak their language, if you can accommodate their schedules, that means a lot. So I would say for me, the thing that had the biggest impact was not solely focusing on those hard skills, because they can be taught, but to focus on people who are like the people we are serving, who have something in common with them, because that's when you can see those relationships really building beyond just the transactional.
That's a really good insight. I like that a lot. Like, by instead of hiring for the technical skill set, hiring for similar life experience to your target customer, and how much more rapport that allows them to build, and understanding of the customer's needs. You're right. Those things are very hard to teach. Whereas teaching someone to just understand the basics of content strategy and, writing, I don't want to say it's easy, but it is a little more of an established skill set that you can kind of follow a template to get to.
Yeah, exactly. And it's not a specific type of mindset, unlike the fact that you need to understand on content strategy. So.
Right. What do you find is the most fun part of running your own business? What do you like about it?
I think, it's the ability to solve problems. And that's been just a recurring thread throughout my whole life. That's what I come in to do. I solve problems. And obviously, I'm not trying to say that content is everyone's biggest problem, but it's usually a symptom of something else. And then you start to see how just solving one thing helps this founder, for example, flourish and be able to focus on other things. Like if they were busy writing content yesterday, they can now start to use that time to appear in podcasts or talk more about their product or talk to customers. So just being able to facilitate that change with something as simple as writing a social media post for them, for example.
It is always fun to see the work that you do output into something that saves someone else's time, makes someone else's lives better, whatever it is, like that's just always a very rewarding cycle to get that feedback, what on the flip side, what's hard about it? What do you not like about running your own business versus, being an employee or more of a freelancer?
I hate scanning invoices at the end of the month. My accountant hates me. I'm always late. But no, jokes aside, it's difficult to always stay on top of so many different changes. So when you run a marketing agency, you have to stay on top of the marketing industry changes. You have to stay on top of changes for your clients. And obviously that becomes easier when you hire people who are focused on doing that. But for a long time, I could not do that. I was very much hands-on. And so I would say that sort of context switching, it always drains you a bit. And you have to be very strict about telling yourself, stop, now go rest. The world is not ending. We are not neurosurgeons. It is going to be fine and can wait until Monday morning.
Oh, totally. That pressure that we have as founders to always know what's going on, both in our business and with our clients and with the industry. And like, there's this never ending just hose of knowledge coming at you that you're like, I can't know it all, and which you can't. But you're right. You got the key is, and you said it, is you have to let yourself let it go. You can't just the solution isn't learn it all. The solution is back up and like, focus on what really matters and try to just get out of it a little bit every day. Yeah. That's a great insight. All right. Lana, I always ask this question too. What book have you read in the last couple of years that's really influenced you as an entrepreneur, or that you find yourself recommending, or really, impacted you in some way?
That's a good question. Well, I'm not going to say Atomic Habits because I feel like everyone says Atomic Habits. But
it's a good one. Yeah.
Yeah, it is. But it's a much older book. I think if I remember the name correctly, it's The McDonaldization of Society. I don't know if you're familiar. It basically talks about how things are becoming generic and how they're becoming mass produced and mass consumed, obviously. And for me, even though it's more of a sociology book and more of a political and economical book, for me, it's very interesting to really structure all those patterns that we fall into every day. And so it has been eye-opening in the sense of wanting to produce something that's more individual, but also understanding why things that are massively popular, like McDonald's, why they resonate with people. And so bridging that gap, creating something for the popular demand while also keeping it very individualized.
Yeah. I find, and it's funny you bring that up because a lot of people, when they tell you, advice for how to grow your agency, the standard wisdom is, standardize things and operationalize, make everything the same, right? But then that kind of goes directly against the whole idea of being a creative agency where you can do things differently for each client and you really like get to know them. And I don't think there's a right and wrong answer here. I think it's just interesting to consider both sides of that coin and not just follow one dogmatically blindly, right? Like there's probably some value in both theories.
Yeah, exactly. And I think, standard operating procedures, they really help you carve out the time and carve out like a very set schedule for when you'll be able to be creative. And if you standardize everything, then you can take a look at it analytically and see where you're not leaving enough room for creativity. Like, for example, we used to do very strict content briefs with founders in the beginning to get their thoughts on positioning, competitors. So basically everything that content strategists would need to be able to create a strategy. And so I've realized over time that's not giving anyone enough room to insert the information that they have on their business, which might not be, necessarily very marketing related, but it's these hunches. And if a founder is good, if they know what they're doing, their hunch is usually pretty right. So trying to accommodate these kinds of things. But like I said, having something that's a standard that you follow every time, like a protocol, it also gives you room to free up time to focus on being creative, if that makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely. That makes a ton of sense. I think there's a quote I mentioned over and over that I don't know who it's from, but it's basically creativity breeds constraints breed creativity. So exactly what you said. And I try to remember that all the time for my teams. I think that's a good place to leave it off today. Lana Rafaela, this has been really fun. Thanks so much for coming on. I know people can find out more about Cherry Red Content, cherryredcontent.com. Where can people follow up with you if they've got other questions or want to talk to you?
I'm on Twitter. I'm on LinkedIn, mostly LinkedIn these days. So yeah, absolutely.
Awesome.
Anyone can ping me about anything. I'd be happy to chat.
Great. We'll put your LinkedIn link in the notes here. And thanks so much for listening, everybody. Hope you all have a great day. Thank you for watching this episode of Retain Trust. If you like this one, give it a thumbs up and subscribe on YouTube. It takes 2 seconds and it helps others find out about the show. And if you have questions or suggestions for a future episode, leave a comment. See you next time.